Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to Offshore Wind Supply Chain Meeting 2020 by Orlen. This is to commence the dialogue with the market and suppliers interested in offshore wind farms. This is the Baltic Power meeting dedicated to the most relevant data on the investment and the Q&A session on its implementation. In 2021, we're planning on dedicated meetings to each subsequent stream of investment, and in workshop mode we shall transmit technology and timing information to you. Today, you'll learn about the plans on developing the wind power within our new strategy. You'll learn about the details about the Baltic Power project. We'll also transmit some information about procurement details. We shall also host a British host, the British guest that will tell us about the good practices. You're more than welcome to ask our panelists questions via a section dedicated to that on our website. By the end of this meeting, we'll have a proper Q&A session. Now let me give the floor to the first speaker, the Executive Director for Energy, Mr. Jarosław Dybowski. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am happy to greet you at our today's online meeting. Of course, I'd rather have it live than as a video conference, but I hope that when we can finally meet, once this is possible, we will certainly invite you for a cup for Stop Cafe coffee right here. However, let's make the most out of the current form of this meeting. I'm particularly happy today because 2 days after hard work, after 2 years of hard work, we have managed to finally launch this meeting. We have enough data to show you and to start the preparations on implementation of this project. Let's start with our aspirations. Who we are, what's the direction of development, how Orlen looks today, and how it will look in 2030. If you're willing to cooperate with us, you should certainly get to know us better. I will not tell you about very many details. However, I'll point your attention to the offshore wind power today and its role and relevance within our strategy. So, our aspirations for 2030. Having in mind current trends in energy production, we can tell that energy transformation is ongoing, both in Poland and abroad. It's relative to ecology, to our approach to energy production, to fossil fuels. More and more energy we'd like to extract from renewables, which is further aided by technology. Both PV and onshore wind power is becoming cheaper and cheaper. Energy production is certainly growing. Both industry and mobility have their share in that. We want to cover these needs via green energy by caring for environment. We do pay attention to our consumers. Many companies inquire us about energy supply, but they make the reservation that that energy must be green. This has an impact on our strategy. ORLEN's response for 2030 is as following. As of today, we're already one of the leading energy production oil companies in our region. By 2030, we shall be one of the key business players in the European market. We'll be leaders of energy transformation in Czechia and Slovakia. We've got petrol stations in Germany. We want to be a leading company in these areas. We shall try and provide comprehensive energy services to our consumers. We're socially responsible as well, and this responsibility shall be deepened and further developed in a sustainable way, in an environmentally friendly way. As of today, ORLEN already is a significant company on this market. However, we shall try and maintain our value and increase it in the future so that our shareholders are satisfied. Let's take a look at the strategy then. What are the main strategic directions, you asked? Increasing the output, strategic development, and future investments are the three most important ones. You see renewals in the strategic development department. We'd like to invest in onshore and offshore wind power, in PV, etc. But the most important project out of these are offshore wind farms. Now let's take a look at the future investments. In 2030, there is no offshore projects, offshore wind power project, because they should become everyday business by then. In the future, we talk recycling, we talk hydrogen technologies, and offshore wind farms should have been very much developed by then, or on the very advanced stages of development. As for sustainability, we think decarbonizing, increasing capacity in biofuels and biomaterials. We want to produce clean hydrogen on the basis of biofuels, construct facilities for recycling. By 2030, we will have invested 30 billion zlotys in sustainability, including 25 billion in the reduction of CO2 emission. By 2050, we want to be carbon neutral, so no net emissions in the entire holding. We have analyzed it deeply, and we think this is possible. By 2030, in energy production only, we want to reduce CO2 emissions by 33%. We have researched technologies, we have researched our possible investment, we have the plan in place. By 2050, well, until 2050, this plan is not as detailed, but we do have the technology and we do know how to get there. Past 2030, new technologies will probably become available, so there is still some room for us to move. The takeaway is, by 2050, we want to have zero net emissions, and offshore wind farms are crucial to help us in attaining that goal. Our development so far, let me tell you a couple of words about this. We have acquired the Energa holding. It's the greenest, the cleanest energy production group in Poland. Having acquired that, we changed the technology in the gas power plant in Ostrołęka, which only goes to show our commitment to green strategies. Energa has some some heat and power production facilities that will be transformed into gas plants. Gas engines will be installed there. We are also preparing for the takeover of PGNiG Group. Gas is a transformation fuel, as we call it in energy production. It's important to offset the production via renewable sources to secure the supply. We want to modernize the retail segment. We are in the middle of taking over the Lotos holding. Please take a look at this picture. Here you see that the offshore construction, the offshore projects are just as important as the other strategic projects here. Is the timing right? Let's take a look at Europe. Between 2019 and 2030, in Europe, about 20% increase will be seen in capacity, in adding new capacities, because in Europe, investments have been made already. In Denmark or Germany, renewable capacity is very much the case for a good measure. Here, the investment boom is only commencing, and we want to be part of it. Our portfolio must have a dedicated spot for renewables. Energy transformation is certainly a challenge, but it is also an opportunity at the same time. This is how we see it at Orlen. We invest in electromobility and energy storage. In one of Energas facilities, we have already installed one test energy storage facility. We need gas as a transformation fuel, as a transition fuel to balance the renewable production. I've mentioned recycling. We're also investing in solar power. We're already owners of hydroelectric facilities, one of the largest one in Poland, and hydrogen. Hydrogen is the fuel of the future. However, before it becomes one to the fullest, a lot of time will pass. However, we want to invest in clean hydrogen production. We want to produce fuel for clean bus transportation. We have signed a couple of intention letters with city authorities so that we can provide hydrogen for city transport, for city buses. How to get there? Well, first and foremost, we want to be the regional leader of renewable energy. We are investing in wind power so that by 2030 we have about 3,000 megawatts installed capacity. Baltic Power is 1 to 2 gigawatts, but by 2030, as I've said, we want 3,000 megawatts of offshore power. 1,000 megawatts onshore, plus PV, plus energy storage as well. We want to lead in gas power generation. Once we have taken over PGNiG, the Polish company responsible for gas and oil extraction, that will be easier. We're talking with Lotos about CCG facilities in Gdańsk to be constructed. We already have, but we're developing the distribution portfolio. which should bring in a very stable income. By 2030, we want to invest 47 billion zloty, billion PLN in renewable energies. We want you to be part of these projects. We want you to be part of implementation of this strategy. Hence, please do take part in this project. Please avail fully of what Orlen is, a multi-energy company, a strong player in the Central European region. And I do encourage you to get on board with us. We are already a large oil and fuel production company. In the future, we want to be a leading green, clean company by 2030, a large chain, a large multi-energy production firm. On this last slide, you can see the logotypes of Orlen. Today, it's a red. It's red, and in the future, we will become very much green. By 2050, zero emissions. Thank you very much. This has been our first presentation. I hope, and this event of today is our first one, but I hope we can have a coffee live in the future.
Thank you very much for this presentation. All of you interested in the Orlen Strategy 2030, we invite you to browse our website. And do not hesitate to ask questions if you have any. And now let's move over to the second presentation today. The Offshore Wind Farms Director will present the key information about the PKN Orlen Offshore Wind Farm project. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Grzegorz Chodkowski. This is the first meeting with the companies interested in execution of our project. I will present the key information related to our project according to the agenda that you can see on the screen. After presentation of the general information about the Baltic Power Company, I will continue with the actual status of our project. I will present the schedule of the project, and I will end with the perspectives for cooperation between our company and yours businesses. So Baltic Power, the sole owner of the company is PKN Orlen, and is the only owner with the 100% stake package. This company was prepared for the construction. It has been awarded a concession for obtaining location license, and it can construct a wind farm of the total capacity of 1,200 megawatts. In the process of recruiting, we are in the process of recruiting the industry-based partner for shared execution of the project. PKN Orlen is highly engaged in the creation of this new industry, which is wind farm industry. Baltic Power is an active member of associations such as the Polish Association of Wind Farms and the Polish Association of Offshore Wind Farms, as well as in the works under the auspices of the Ministry of Climate and Environment. So we act in line with the sector related arrangement made in order to develop this sector of industry. Baltic Power is one of the most advanced, and I'm glad to say one of the most dynamically developed projects in Europe and in Poland. Apart from the concession I've mentioned, Baltic Power has already the grid connection agreement signed and the grid connection conditions confirmed, and now it is in the process at a very advanced stage in negotiations of the terms and conditions of grid connection agreement. We have also completed environmental impact assessment on the territory of our wind farm. In July this year, we have submitted an environmental impact report within the relevant ministry, and we are waiting for the environmental decision to be issued. What is important, our project qualifies for so-called the first phase of the support change in line with the Act on Promoting Power Generation in Offshore Wind Farms. It is highly important aspect of our project, which makes it even more realistic. A few words about the technical parameters of our future wind farm. It's going to be a farm located within 130 kilometers, within 22.5 kilometers away from our shore, near Łeba. The maximum depth of our farm, it will be from 33 to 45 meters. When it comes to our turbines, we are thinking about the state-of-the-art latest technologies of the total capacity of 1,200 megawatts. When it comes to the power takeoff infrastructure, we're thinking about the changing current technology. When it comes to the completion of construction, it will probably take about 25 years. When it comes to the status of works, apart from the conditions and negotiations of grid connection agreement terms and conditions, we are just in the middle of the second year of the wind impact assessment. We have also carried out initial geotechnical research, and we are in the middle of geotechnical essays onshore on the territory when we will cross the sea line. We want to construct this wind farm without any harm to tourism, local tourism, and to the environment. When it comes to the design phase, I will say something more about it later on during this presentation, but since September this year, we have been working intensely on the technical design of the farm, and we are designing the whole takeoff infrastructure and grid connection infrastructure. So here you can see the timeline of our investment. Since 2019, we've been carried out research on the territory of our farm, and we are going to continue in 2021. We have already launched the research and essays and tests on the territory of the farm. We want to launch the procurement process next year that shows how advanced we are in preparation of our investment. After the completion of the procurement process, which will complete by the end of 2022, and after being issued a positive decision on the realization of the investment, we will start the construction phase, which will start from the prefabrication of the key components, and the setup and installation is predicted for the years 2024 and 2025. After this period, we will generate power in our wind farm, and then maintenance, which will last about 25 years. Design of the wind farm and take-off infrastructure. This is a highly important element from the point of view of the whole undertaking. These works are being executed for us by two subcontractors. When it comes to the wind farm, it is ended with an offshore substation, and we are supplied by Offshore Design Engineering. In that respect, when it comes to the infrastructure, takeoff infrastructure onshore and offshore, it was entrusted to Enprom Limited Liability Company. I'm talking about that because if it didn't happen yet, you will be surely asked by these two entities for presenting your technical parameters related to the technical components that you would be able to supply to these two companies. That will streamline the optimization of our investment. These two companies are, of course, not the only ones with whom we've been cooperating up to now. The list is quite long. You can see the logos of all our partners on the screen. Naturally, when our construction is completed, we know that this list will become even longer and even richer, and for sure it won't be possible to squeeze all the names of the companies on one slide. At the end of these presentations, I would like to talk about the perspectives for cooperations in execution of the Baltic Power project. Soon we will launch the procurement process. This moment is ahead of us. We're about to start, and my colleagues are going to present the situation in greater details. But what does it mean for us? It means that you have a great opportunity as business owners to take part in highly competitive tender procedures and procurement process, which will offer you long-term contracts. We count on your active participations, both if you represent companies supplying the key components, as well as if you represent subcontractors. We count on Polish local stakeholders and partners, and it's a great opportunity for you to build your reference and to expand your portfolio. So if you would like to enter into this new sector, which is developing rapidly, I would just want to say that the time is limited, and it's the high time to get interested in that. So your Polish participation, the participation of Polish business is highly important for us. The key message from this presentation is that we have already entered into a very advanced stage of preparation of our investment, and soon we're going to launch the procurement processes. We count on your intense preparation and active participation in the procurement processes. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much for all the information, and I strongly encourage you to ask questions on our website. So, project manager for supply chain, Joanna Szymańska-Jaruga, and the head of preparation of offshore wind farms, Piotr Ostrowski, will present the key information about the procurement process in the Baltic Power project. We would like to get you acquainted with the procurement processes related to the Baltic Power project. And at this point, we would like to talk a little bit about how we perceive our role in development, and as a developer in the procurement process, we will share all this information, which would for sure prove valuable to all of you. So we would like to present our approach to our procurement strategy, what is the time limit for the procurement process, and all that will be presented. Of course, Director Chodkowski has already presented some details, and now we will present specific information and details about our planned procurement process. In the next part, Jola will present supply chains plans, as well as the information about how we are going to proceed in our dialogue with suppliers and how you can contact us So, ladies and gentlemen, how do we perceive our role as the developer in this procurement process? Let me mention about the two key areas of our focus. First and foremost, this is the securing of our demand in the Baltic Power project, and at this point we concentrate on definition of the strategy of execution of our investment. So finally, in what packages we are going to contract and execute this project. We are meeting with our suppliers that has been mentioned by our director. We've been engaged into the project works. Our representatives contact with suppliers of technologies and solutions in order to design our solutions in the most optimum way possible. We have to carry out some market sounding in order to assume to have the right assumptions for our project. At the end, our final goal is to make contracts with our suppliers, so-called Tier 1 suppliers, so these ones who will execute the project packages for us. And the second area, which is also very important, that we perceive as the area in which we have a mission. We want in our supply chain for our project, but also in the broader sense for the whole Polish offshore energy industry, we want to see the high participation of the Polish business. So we strongly encourage you to engage in the initiatives and to join these highly complex undertakings. So this Polish content is at the heart of our attention. We want to create a common platform to exchange expertise and experience and to prepare all the suppliers who will enter and who will take part in this supply chain for the sake of the development of the Polish wind energy. We have already engaged in a series of initiatives in order to promote the Polish content in the execution of the wind farm, in the project related to wind farm energy. We have our sector deal signed, but also we have the Pomerania platform for offshore wind farms. So we support many initiatives aiming at maximizing the presence of the Polish content in these kind of undertakings. At this point, I would like to say something about the current status of our assumptions related to our installation packages. For sure, what is important at this point is that we want to have a multi-contracting project formula. We predict about 6 implementation packages, one related to turbines, the second to foundations, cables, export cables, offshore and onshore substations, and others. And of course, what is also important, this is the service base onshore, the transport and installation. We are in the middle of the analysis, and maybe the foundation package will be split into the production part and into the transport and assembly of foundations, which is transport from the factory to the construction site and setup. up. Of course, works are underway, and in the months to come, with the development of the process and technical analysis that are being carried out by our designers, we will provide you with more details related to our strategy, so as in 2021 we could adopt final assumptions based on which the procurement processes will be specified and defined in order to prepare you for participation in our procurement processes. And now, in greater details, we would like to present the time horizon for the execution of our procurement processes. So, as it has been said in this first part, we will start in 2021. We assume that in the third quarter we will launch the procurement processes. We will start from the so-called non-binding offers, then we will move over to binding offers in order to select the so-called preferred suppliers with whom we will precise all the contract details. What is highly important, our ultimate goal here is to prepare the procurement processes and to carry them out in a way so as we are ready to sign contracts by the end of 2022. As you can see on the screen, we will start from the two main components even in 2021. That is a little bit earlier, and at a later stage we will continue with other packages as well. So our ultimate goal is to have all contracts signed by the end of 2022, where all the processes will be closed and covered and all contracts fully prepared for execution. And at this point, let me leave the floor to Jola, who will present the details related to supply chain.
Thank you very much indeed. Hello, my name is Jolanta Szymańska-Jaruga, and I am responsible for supply chain planning. I have had the pleasure to meet some of you during the bilaterals. For the rest of you, I hope we can meet as soon as possible. At this point, PKN Orlen in the Baltic Power project is working on the supply chain, where we want to have our suppliers to meet the highest performance norms. The Baltic Power will be operating in very demanding weather conditions. Therefore, all offshore components must be of highest quality so that the farm can operate continuously throughout a 25-year period. We do want to maximize the share of Polish companies in this massive project. We want your participation to be as large as possible. All goods and services supplied must meet the highest standards, I reiterate. However, as the developer, we shall make sure that the Tier 1 acknowledges Polish companies so that we can support them in providing their goods. Our intention is to perform this according to the sectorial deal that's under drafting right now. Polish offshore wind farm sector support is also on our radar. We'd like to increase competitiveness of Polish suppliers. We want to make sure that the maximum number of companies participate. We shall support those that already are in the market and those companies that would like to join this endeavor. We shall also support R&D initiatives and innovation initiatives. We have seen that over the last 5 years, a huge technological leap has been made, and this tendency will only continue. We'd like to support human resources development, both at the construction stage and at the operational stage. Already today, we support our people in many different ways, including internships for students and young graduates. This new emerging energy sector, we wanted to develop well by creating many new jobs. The plan is being currently drafted based on commercial conditions and circumstances. We want this plan to be a living thing, so to speak, at this stage. We still need to determine the potential of involvement into our project for both foreign and Polish companies. The creation of a supply chain is crucially dependent on the dialogue with subcontractors and contractors that will be our direct suppliers. Our intention is to have the vastest number of suppliers possible. Our Tier 1 suppliers will receive information on the array of Polish companies involved in offshore power, so that they can already start making relationships with the sector. Further on, soon we'd like to organize a technical dialogue between Tier 1 and smaller suppliers, so that the cooperation could launch as of today. Further meetings are planned in more of a workshop format. We'd like to talk more technically, and we'd like to talk more about possible cooperation. These meetings will be organized according to the packages that we've just described. Here is when I invite you to visit our new website. This being launched as we speak. This is the main channel of communication between yourselves and us. You'll find crucial information on the project there and all information regarding possible cooperation. I would like to point your attention, especially today, to the fact that this website will feature a form for a potential supplier, for a potential contractor. Hence, you will be able to register that way. The form will be made available in the beginning of 2021, but I can already show you how it looks. So this is the form for contractor registration. It contains a number of questions as well. We do want you to answer these questions because in that way we can obtain fairly detailed information on your company's profile, and then we will be able to determine the grade of your possible involvement. Why am I telling you this? On our website, you'll see updates on new developments, on new planned meetings dedicated to the thematic packages and contractors, the technical dialogue meetings, that is. I strongly encourage Polish suppliers to register on that website because by obtaining this information, we can transmit it then to the main contractors of the Baltic Power Project. And that's how we can match main suppliers, main contractors with yourselves, your experience, your possible contributions, and so on. This is also beneficial for Tier 1 contractors because it gives them access to potential Polish contractors. As it's been already said, we are planning on having further meetings with contractors according to the procurement packages. These meetings will be held in Q2 and Q3 of 2021. You'll find the data, the news on our website, and we'll also spread the news via other channels. This brings us to an end of this part of our meeting. Please stay in touch, either via email, offshoresuppliers@orlen.pl, or on our website, via our website. And now to sum up, let me tell you just how we care about having a good pool of suppliers, of contractors for Baltic Power. Therefore, we do care about your participation. Thank you very much indeed. And traditionally, let me remind you of the possibility to ask questions that will then be addressed at the end of this session. Now let's take 10, and after that break, our British guests will present best practices for Polish offshore sector. These will be the examples of the British offshore power.
I can't hear you yet. Can you hear me?
że wciąż jesteście z nami. Zgodnie z zapowiedzią chciałbym zaprosić na ostatnie wystąpienie, jakie na dziś zaplanowaliśmy. Mike Blanch z firmy doradczej BVG Associates w swojej prezentacji opowie Państwu o dobrych wzorach i przykładach brytyjskich firm, które z powodzeniem działają na prężnie rozwijającym się rynku morskiej energetyki wiatrowej. Mike, witamy i zapraszamy.
Thank you, Christoph, and good morning to you all. PKN Orlin has asked me to speak a bit about the UK experience of offshore wind. UK has been involved in offshore wind for quite some time and has been trying to increase what the UK itself does. So I would like to discuss what good patterns there have been from the UK that may be helpful for the Polish industry when it's looking at the opportunities and challenges of offshore wind. Next slide, please. Just a little bit about BBG Associates. We were founded in 2006, so quite at the beginning of the offshore wind industry, although I myself have been in offshore wind for 23 years. We have a number of clients and we work in business strategy, economics and technology, and mainly work in onshore and offshore wind. Next slide, please. May I have the next slide, please? Thank you. On our website, you can find lots of different reports which may be helpful. And there's also a website called Guide to an Offshore Wind Farm, which please have a look at that. That's very helpful in terms of telling you what is in an offshore wind farm and can be hopefully helpful for you. Next slide, please. So in terms of content today, what I want to do is talk a little bit about global perspectives, the market in general, to look at where the money goes on offshore wind farms, to give a UK perspective, and then to consider some examples of what has happened in the UK. We will talk about some companies who have done activities in the UK, and we will also at the end talk about a port called Grimsby, who has seen a lot of investment to do with operations and maintenance. I want to be clear that in no way in mentioning these am I suggesting that PK Orlin has a favour for any of these companies. These are merely examples of companies that have done things in the UK. There is no implicit or explicit assumptions that PKN Orlin favour these companies in any way. Next slide, please. In the UK, we have quite a large market, and we've been fortunate enough to see a lot of activity. Actually, by the end of 2020, there will be about 26 gigawatts installed capacity in Europe. But this is going to grow significantly, and by the end of 2028, we expect to see something in the order of 84 gigawatts. So that's an extra 57 or so gigawatts that need to be installed. Just over a third of that capacity, new capacity, will be in the UK. So the UK has a very large market. And the installation rate in Europe will rise from about 4 gigawatts a year, as it is at the moment, to 12 gigawatts. So it will increase 3 times, and definitely more supply is needed. So there is an opportunity there. There is also a challenge because many of the components are getting bigger. So there is a challenge there for suppliers to cope with being able to produce bigger and bigger components. Europe currently is the centre of manufacturing, but it does have a global supply chain. So companies in Europe, main companies, will already source components from other places like China. We see markets in America growing. So America will grow to something like 3 gigawatts per year from about 2024. And Asia is growing considerably. It will reach something like 8 gigawatts requirement per year in 2024 and continue to grow at about 1 gigawatt a year, at least up until 2030 and probably well beyond. So we do see more factories appearing in the Americas and in Asia, and that will take some of the pressure of existing European ones. And it will also reduce risks. The most likely components built elsewhere will be heavy, bulky components such as towers and foundations. They will be the first ones to be built. The wind turbine industry still sees a lot of cost reduction happening, and that's partly because innovation is still very active, and it's driven partly by the bigger and bigger components, while leading to lower and lower cost of energy, but also because of remote locations of turbines. Recently, because of COVID-19, there has been a lot more innovation about how to do different tasks remotely. Next slide, please. This pie chart gives an idea about the different areas of spend in an offshore wind farm. I would like to draw your attention to the purple sector, which is about operations and maintenance and service, accounts for about 42% of the spend of a typical wind farm. It is a major opportunity, and it is an area where local work is expected and will happen. In the UK, we achieve about 50% of UK content. So that's actual work done in the UK for our local wind farms. And that means that actually we capture quite a lot of operations and maintenance and service, but we also capture a few items in the actual manufacture of components and indeed complete cables, for example. In the UK, though, we have a target of 60% UK content by 2030, which means that the UK needs or wants to have many more factories building the components. So in a way, this is not good for Poland because the UK is trying to attract many more inward investment. And there may be an opportunity, though, because the UK factories will need supply from elsewhere. Again, I mentioned innovation is still highly important, and innovation happens as much in the factories and the way things are produced as in the actual components themselves. But we know that the UK is not competitive in some areas of supply. For example, jackets foundations. There's a company called Bifab which has just gone into administration, and that is not surprising to a UK mindset because jackets require a lot of labour, and relatively speaking, the UK is quite expensive when it comes to components that require a lot of labour. Next slide, please. This is an example of inward investment in the UK. Siemens Gamesa have installed a factory or built a factory. They, together with Associated British Ports, invested 310 million, and the factory opened in 2016. There's lots of demand for jobs. Although 700 people were employed at first, Siemens Gamesa had 23,000 job applications. The factory originally built a 75-meter long blade for the 6 megawatt turbine, but it's now, in the last year, has converted its manufacturing to build the 81-meter blade for the 8 megawatt turbine, and now has more than 1,000 people directly employed. It's provided blades to the world's largest wind farm. Just to note that the UK market is large relative to the Polish one, but even so, the UK market has not had many inward investments of this nature. This is quite unusual. So that's an example of inward investment from one of the main manufacturers. Next slide, please. Here is an example. You may well be very aware of TF Cable. This company normally sells under the JDR Ray cable, and this company is quite an old company. It was formed in 1990 by a merger, and it has 75 years experience in subsea umbilical and power cables. It invested 30 million in 2009 to expand its facilities in Hartlepool, and TF Cable bought the JDR company in 2017. Quite a lot of the content, though, of the cables that are produced by JDR actually are from the Telefonica factory in Poland, where the cores of the cable are produced. So this company has provided about a third of all the cables in the arrays for wind farms in Europe. It was pioneering because it developed a 66 kV cable. Previously, 33 kV was used. So 66 kV cables are easier to install and require less material. And it has just got a contract for the first floating offshore wind project to power oil and gas platforms. So that's an example of effectively a Polish-owned company, but actually producing the final project in the product in the UK. Next slide, please. May I have next slide, please? Oh, sorry, I think we, yeah, yes, that's lovely, thank you. Yes, so here is an example of a company that was originally located in the UK, and it was servicing the petrochemical industry. So it's moved into working on wind farms, supplying wind farms. Again, quite old, formed in 1979. It first got involved in wind energy in 2007 when it started to make micro generation wind turbine structures. But it got its first offshore wind contract in 2015. And in 2017, in response to the opportunity of the market, it opened its first, it opened a new purpose-built facility that was quayside at Garston in Liverpool. So they have been awarded some big contracts. For example, there's a picture on the right there of a 12-meter tall, 10-ton internal platform, suspended internal platform that they're supplying 30 of to a large wind farm, which is called Hornsea 2. And so this is an example of a company that has changed from the petrochemical industry to supply to the wind industry. Next slide, please. Tecmar is a company, again, not that new, formed in 1995. It was actually formed in Norway and relocated to the UK, but it was working in the oil and gas sector. In 2003, they set up an in-house manufacturing facility, and by 2011 had become the market leader, providing the design and supply of cable protection systems for the offshore wind industry. In fact, they supply 75% of the market, the global market, for all offshore energy markets worldwide, oil and gas, offshore wind, interconnectors and telecoms. So they really have become the dominant market leader. They're now on the 10th generation of the cable protection system, so they're continuing to innovate, and they continue to supply into new markets, for example, wind projects in China. Next slide, please. Wilton is an example of a company, again, that was formed in the early 90s, again, in the oil and gas sector. But it kept its eyes open. In 2005, it built a small part of what was a demonstrator offshore wind project. But it has a large facility and some of the largest construction halls in the UK. And it also partners with another company to provide coatings, which is helpful. So partnership is important. And it's currently building 21 transition pieces for Ørsted's Hornsea 1 project. You can see them they're being loaded out. The first 4 are being loaded out there. So it's a company also that used to be in the oil and gas sector, but has moved into the offshore wind sector. The next slide shows a operation and maintenance port, Port of Grimsby East. It used to be called Grimsby Fish Docks, and in the middle of the 20th century, it was had the world's largest fishing fleet. It has now lost all that fishing fleet, and it suffered a lot. It suffered a lot from what's called post-industrial decline. It started to provide services to the offshore wind industry in 2009 with the first offshore wind farms that were built in the UK, and it has just steadily grown its involvement. It has been very proactive in engaging with the industry, and the industry has effectively rewarded it. It now has a large number of wind farms that it's providing services to, and it's also will be providing services for the larger wind farms that are still coming along in the UK. And about 80% of the workforce live within an hour's drive of the site. But you can see modern buildings, reinvestment. It has really, really been a renaissance of the Port of Grimsby, but also the town of Grimsby, which has seen the investment come in and is very buoyant. So that's a sort of vision of what the large amount of offshore wind in one service base can transform what was a very sorry and sad port. Just like to move to the next slide, please. So just in summary, I'd just like to say that that I'm aware, and we're obviously working with PK All-in on the supply chain, but Poland does have more of a manufacturing base than the UK, so there may be opportunities that arise from that. But we're also very aware that there is a focus on growing supply chain from those who are already established suppliers. I mentioned that the UK is a big market and hopes to be able to pull in more factories to itself, but there may be opportunities in supplying those factories. And just to summarize the opportunities, more suppliers needed. The market is a very buoyant and growing one. Local supply is desired, but it's not guaranteed. There are various standards on quality and volume that are needed to be met. Local supply is much more likely in activities tied to operations and maintenance. We've certainly seen that in the UK, and so certainly a big opportunity there for Polish suppliers. And UK and elsewhere factories may need more subcomponent supply. The challenges are that there is a bigger main components, so the ability to build things becomes a struggle. And we've seen the number of suppliers of main components reduce with time. There are established suppliers in the market, and they are obviously keen to remain key suppliers going forward. And there is already much of manufacturing is already globally sourced. So I'm keen that we enter this, or if you're entering the industry, are very aware of the challenges that may be ahead for you. So thank you for listening. Last slide, please. And I'd like to hand you back to the studio and thank you for your time.
Mike, thank you very much for your time and for this great take during that conference. Ladies and gentlemen, so we have exhausted the agenda for today, and now let's launch the last part, which is the Q&A session. During all event, we've been collecting your questions. There is a few of them. We know who will respond to them, so the last thing ahead of us is to ask questions. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. First question that we got is, what is the competitive advantage in the procurement process that you offer to the Polish suppliers? As I've said, we count on the Polish content in this procurement process and in the whole undertaking. This is our role as the PKN Orlen, as to strengthen the Polish economy, and we want the capital investment to be sourced locally, but we cannot forget about the fact that the procurement processes will be highly competitive, and we strongly count on that. What does it mean for Polish suppliers? It means that all potential suppliers willing to take part in the procurement process, also these based in Poland, they have to meet a series of criteria and requirements, quantity and quality criteria. So it is extremely important for the entities from Poland which were not engaged in the offshore wind industry to engage and to enter the market through alliance and partnerships and participation in consortiums, and to observe other investments within that industry in order to get some experience and meet criteria that we will set in our procurement procedure. The second question to you, Piotr. Will turbines be based on jacket foundations or maybe other ones? Well, now we are in the middle of defining that. At the moment, we don't exclude that we may use monopile as well as jacket foundations. The analyses are underway. We're using all kind of data that we have collected during these last 2 years of researches. Of course, we will take into account the parameters of the seabed and the type of turbine which will match the best this infrastructure and these environmental conditions. So within the months to come, within further analysis and project cycles, we will define final solutions to be adopted within that project. As I've said, both solutions are taken into account at this point, but in our base case scenario, we would probably stick to monopiles. However, some project-related works have to be carried out in order to get the final confirmation for that. Of course, the final criterion will be the cost of it. Grzegorz, will the farm be constructed in split for several phases, when it comes to Baltic Power wind farm, it will be constructed within one phase because we want to close the investment as soon as possible in order to generate clean energy and supply it to the national grid. When it comes to the economic aspects, we know that the construction in one stage is more cost efficient and is a better business case for our company. And the Baltic Power is a first phase in the development of the offshore wind energy in the history of PKN Orlen, because this won't be our last word. We will follow the strategy that we presented at the beginning of this meeting. Thank you very much. Jola, I would like to ask you one question. When exactly PKN Orlen will continue the communication with the suppliers? As I've said before, we would like to be in permanent contact with our suppliers through our website. We will share all updates and the current information about completed stages of our investment, and we will disclose all information related to our perspective cooperation. So we are about to relaunch our website, and we would like to continue our dialogue with the key suppliers and sub-suppliers through regular exchange of information about the database of Polish suppliers that I've also mentioned before. Thank you very much. Piotr, next question. Does PKN Orlen plan to divide projects into small suppliers and larger suppliers? The scope of contract was presented today on slides during presentations, and we, as the investor, we are planning to enter into agreements with key suppliers in split in these 6 packages. So the role of the Polish content would be to become subcontractors and sub-suppliers. We have enumerated a series of initiatives supported to us in order to encourage them to join. Nevertheless, I would like to point out that within the key packages, as for example, a new substation or the issue related to the preparation of the service-based construction, I think that that is a great opportunity for Polish suppliers to enter the market and to engage and become a part of this Tier 1 suppliers group. So this is how we perceive our supply chain in that project. Thank you very much. Jola, going back to you with the next question. What is your O&M strategy? Are you going to which strategy will be preferred by you? At the moment, we are analyzing the O&M aspects of a wind farm after it's constructed. The analyses are underway. Of course, we are analyzing the application of CTV and SOV. But due to the fact that the wind farm will be quite close to the sea line, this CTV option is more realistic for now. However, as I've said, our analyses are underway. The final decision hasn't been made yet, and the final decision will be taken based on the economic aspects and economic analysis. So to sum up, we haven't decided yet about it, and the works on the strategy, O&M strategy, are still underway. Thank you very much. Where are you going to launch the procurement process officially? Piotr. Thank you very much. As I've stressed before, our objective is to launch the procurement process in the second half of 2021. Now we focus on a series of activities to prepare ourselves for the procurement process, to draw up specifications and we will, when starting these processes in the second half of 2021, we would like to complete all processes by the end of 2022. Thank you very much. Next questions. Will we get the presentation? We had a lot of such questions. Yes, of course, we will share all the presentations that you've seen today with you. We will email them. Another question. Does the schedule accounts for the acquisition of the construction permit and the design phase? Are you going to carry out the design phase according to the public procurement law? Yes, the schedule, the timeline that we presented today, it includes the time for preparation of construction designs and application for construction permit. We are going to complete that phase by the end of 2022. We are aware that it takes time, but thanks to an intense cooperation of all persons engaged, we know that it is possible and realistic. When it comes to the second part of this question, whether our executive design will be subject to the public procurement law, yes, of course, we will complete these projects, these designs, but the Baltic Power is not subject to the public procurement law, so the answer is no. Thank you very much. Piotr. Next short questions. Who is the project operator? Who is the constructor? As it has been said, today we have two key partners who support us when it comes to the design phase and design works. So onshore design and the take-off infrastructure to the grid. It has been entrusted to ENPROM, and when it comes to the onshore part, the wind farm itself, turbines, internal cables, and offshore substations, here we are supported by offshore design engineering. Thank you very much. We've been frequently asked about the address of the website for registration. Of course, as I've said before, we are about to launch a new website. The address of the website is www.balticpower.pl. Let me remind you that the registration form for suppliers will be launched at the beginning of January 2021, so please be patient and then you will be invited to register. Thank you very much. And last question, Grzegorz, let me ask you, are you planning next measurement campaigns related to your new plots? For now, we don't have any new plots, not yet. Of course, we have our development plans and we will do anything to acquire new concessions. As soon as we are successful, we will follow the best practices and we will launch geotechnical measurement and other campaigns in order to meet all the requirements related to the preparation for next offshore and onshore investments. Thank you very much for your answers. We have exhausted the list of questions. So no other questions, so please remember that you can ask any questions at offshore suppliers at Orlen.pl, which you can see on the screen. You can ask any questions related to the Baltic Power there. And stay tuned. We invite you to our website to get an update about the project. So this is the time to say goodbye. Thank you very much for your presence and for your interest. We are happy to see that so many of you are interested in your engagement in the wind farm industry. Thank you very much and see you soon.